Hey, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to Kicker Rocks Podcast 2 Drink Minimum. Ooh, it's that time of year where we're thinking about scary stories and spooky movies, and guess what? We're talking about them right here on this very podcast. So, thank you so much for tuning in. This particular podcast, we're talking about a franchise that we have mentioned multiple times during the course of our podcast career, and that is, of course, the Halloween franchise. Hey, perfect time of year for it. So sit back, relax, have a drink with us, and enjoy. Gentlemen, and to those listening at home, cheers.
Cheers.
Yamas.
I almost did a ghoulish laugh, but then I backed out. I don't know why. Yeah, right, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, see, okay, that's a lot better than what I would have done.
Probably.
Yeah. So the reason that we're talking about ghoulish laughs, kids, is because in this episode, myself, Bill, and
Joe.
Sergio.
that was great. And that's all that's here. It's just the trifecta of awesome right now. No offense to JT and Tony. Actually, you know what? All offense to JT and Tony.
Let's offend them, please.
Look, they're not here tonight. Sometimes, kids, life happens. You know, we got different, maybe some would say better things to do, except us, because we're dedicated to you listeners, unlike those other guys.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, so would I. Anyway,
I can't say anything.
All that
I've missed plenty.
Yeah, welcome back, Joe.
Yeah.
How have you been?
I'm well, sir.
You're looking great. We all look great. We're all doing great. We hope you're doing great. And you know what? It's October, and that makes me feel like talking about scary movies, which is what we'd like to do apparently in this podcast quite a bit. We started out, if you're a big fan and you've been listening since episode 1 of this podcast, you know our first topic was horror movies. And one of those first horror movies we talked about was Halloween. And the Halloween franchise has come up quite a bit during our podcast, I guess, what would you call it, Joe?
Career.
Career? Sure. Why not? Our podcast career. The Halloween franchise has come up quite a bit. And therefore, this episode, we're talking about, yet again, the Halloween franchise. We figured we might as well pay it homage since, you know, it's about a 10 to 20% chance that any given podcast we're going to mention Halloween at some point. Okay. So clearly we like it. We love it. It's one of the things that's influenced us. So we're going to talk about that in this one. And we're going to start off, we're using the whole, all the way from 1978 to current timeline. Okay.
And future.
And future. As we just found out today, right? There's a future to this franchise, which is very exciting.
Currently 11 films.
2
more coming.
11 deep. That's crazy. And 2 more coming?
That's a nice round
so a nice
number.
Even 13.
Yeah. I said round, you said even, but
either way.
But that's perfect.
Either way, they're both
same
wrong.
joke.
Yeah, both
round and
wrong.
even, both wrong. It's 13.
Evenly
round nor even.
Right. Which was the joke. Never mind.
Was it a joke? Was it a joke?
Was it? Or can we just not add? Either way. We're going to start out doing a little round table here. We're going to talk about the Halloween franchise, I think, as a whole. And since we all love it, let's start out that way. What are our favorite things about the franchise? Maybe favorite moments, maybe favorite movies, favorite scenes, whatever it is. What do we love about the Halloween franchise as a whole? Who wants to kick things off here?
You go ahead, Sergio.
I want to jump in because I've already said this, and I might have said it in our very first
We probably did. That's
podcast.
the point of this podcast. We talk about it all the time.
I'm going to bring this up again. By far, the first Halloween is the best Halloween because it...
Now you're talking 78.
Yeah. Okay. It started the movement. John Carpenter, Jamie Lee Curtis. Great film. But I'm just going to hone in on that scene that cracks me up to this day. And I talked about this before. It's that opening scene where the little kid just got done stabbing his sister, and he's standing outside the house, and the parents like pull up, and he's just standing there with a bloody knife in his hand, and and you just see this wide shot of the mom standing there with her hands in her pockets, just like
like super casual, like
That is something you brought up on our very first podcast, and you hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that scene, but
Now I can't stop seeing it.
I love it so much.
I don't think I ever even acknowledged it or noticed it until you brought it up too.
I'm with you. It's so well shot, but now when I see it, because Megan, my wife, Megan, it's one of the few. She's not a huge fan of horror.
Okay.
But she likes a lot of the originals, which is wild to me. Like she'll do Friday the 13th, the original. She'll do Halloween, but it has to be the 78 version, right? So see that one every year at least. And that scene, ever since you said that, I'm always like, great scene. But why does she have the hands?
She's just like the indifferent mom with a crazy
like,
child.
What happened here?
Yeah.
I don't know. Let's just maybe take a walk or something.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't think our kid would murder anyone. I think
she's in denial right up there.
Right.
That's the way they set that scene up.
Yeah.
But, all joking aside, and I know I brought that up in the past, that is the movie, and I said this already, I have to watch that Halloween season every year, no matter what. That one and the Rob Zombie one.
Agreed,
So,
100%.
Oh, you watch them both.
Well,
yeah.
I agree with you 100%. And I was going to go that route too. It is far and away first of all, the franchise as a whole is my favorite horror franchise. Okay. But the very first one, 1978, is like hands down my absolute favorite. However, to your point about Rob Zombies as well, I guess I'm finding myself a fan of the first one of each generation of
when
them.
they decide to do
so
a new
obviously
iteration.
78, great. I love that. One of my favorite movies, period, not just horror films.
Okay.
I love the Rob Zombie first one, and we'll probably dive into that in a little bit
What
as
is
to
that?
why.
2000 what?
That would be 2007 for the first one.
Okay.
And then I did very much enjoy the most recent one from 2018.
Okay.
Yeah.
The 40 years later, which, I mean, granted, it wiped out every sequel as if it never happened. And I disagree.
As it should.
Well, I still believe that the Halloween 2...
Even H2O, Serge? Even H2O? Come on.
I don't know. I think Halloween 2 was still a good film in its own right. It wasn't as bad as some of the other sequels.
I do too.
And it was on the same night. So we could have just left that alone, maybe?
Yeah.
And picked up after that, but they chose not to.
It's a little weird, but I hear it plays. I should preface this in saying, regrettably, I have not yet seen the 2018 Halloween yet.
Well, now you've got homework.
The actual, apparently,
or
the alternate universe part 2, right? We can call it that, because I don't like the idea of completely erasing some of the sequels. Some of them you can go ahead and erase.
Right.
But some of the sequels, I think, part 2, great. I think, as Sergio and I pointed out last year, H2O.
Yes.
Entertaining. Highly entertaining film.
Not horrible.
Highly watchable. No, not horrible. But also carried on the Laurie Strode lore, I think.
Yep.
By bringing Jamie Lee back. She seems to be the
key.
constant. If you have her in the
constant.
film, it's going to be a good Halloween.
Yeah.
Right. She's been in
Granted,
5.
she's not in the Rob Zombie first one, which I really do like as well, but she's really good. The original Scream Queen, Yep. Maybe the original Final Girl.
Hold on.
Maybe.
I'm going to correct you really quick
Oh, go
because
ahead.
and I believe we talked about this last year when we watched H2O. She wasn't the original Scream Queen.
Oh, her mother.
mom was
Janet Leigh, of course.
Yeah, Janet Leigh.
Of course. I'm
who
sorry.
was in Psycho.
I'm sorry, yes.
And
the
then is
original
also,
Scream Queen is Janet Leigh in Psycho in the shower.
and then plays alongside
100%.
her own daughter in H2O, two Scream Queens.
Yes, and when they play the Psycho music as she walks in the same car that she drove in Psycho, it's
so awesome.
Yeah, when you
Talk about a
realize
great
that, you
nod.
go, oh. Yeah.
Talk about a great nod. Yeah.
It's one of the best nods ever, for sure. So the original Scream Queen was her mother,
Yep.
but it must run in the family because She definitely is one, and she might be the first. So getting
They got
to
good lungs.
the concept of the final girl, right?
Yeah.
Is she the first to, maybe not the first, but maybe the most popular to maybe get that trope kicked into high gear? You know, the idea of the final girl in a horror movie where, you know, the innocent one, the virgin, you know, the goody, whatever you want to call her, is the one that survives and is the one that can finally stop the big bad evil in those movies, right? Laurie Strode may be the first character to, you know, kind of be that person.
That
I would argue
I think
that.
you're right on.
I would argue that.
That sounds
you know?
about right.
I'm trying to think. Maybe it happened before that, but I think she's the
prominent one.
the one that maybe kicked it off as far as a, you know.
No, you're in regards to mom, daughter, Janet Leigh's character in Psycho, obviously.
Well, she wasn't the final girl for sure.
She wasn't one, she wasn't the final girl. Two, she wasn't innocent. Like
No.
their opening scene is her having an affair. Not even an affair. Oh wait. Was he married? Was that guy? No, it wasn't that he was married. It was just that she was being promiscuous.
I don't know
for that
right.
era.
Yes,
Yeah.
the one thing I
And-
always remember is that her whole storyline was a red herring.
Yeah.
That's when I first learned the
Yeah.
term red herring was watching Psycho.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, this whole plot that you're learning about and you're feeling for her really doesn't matter.
Yeah. It doesn't matter.
She's cannon fodder in the ultimate
Exactly.
storyline of catching
Exactly.
Norman Bates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So,
It's pretty cool.
but to the point you were making, yes, I think Jamie Lee Curtis is probably at least the most well-known first victim that was like the innocent, did nothing wrong, didn't sleep around, played the nice, you know, clean person. And then survived in the end.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Laurie-
she was
Laurie Strode
becoming the hero.
Yeah. Laurie Strode paved the way for Sidney Prescott.
Yes.
Oh.
yeah.
I will do a whole podcast on
Well said.
Scream. We can't do that right now. Maybe
Or
next
even the
year.
Nightmare on Elm Street, like
Yes, Nancy.
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 Yeah, there's another character, just wholesome, good-hearted. Yeah, you're probably right, but then again, how many '60s horror films did any of us
No.
see? Like, I haven't seen too many.
I
Massacre,
haven't either. Outside of, you know, maybe like you know, Nosferatu or which is before that, but you know, the original what is it, Dawn of the Dead.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
but outside of that, but there wasn't really I don't feel there wasn't really a final.
Yeah, you
girl
like
in
that,
any of those, right? So
yeah.
I think maybe the original Halloween is when that all happened.
I feel like you've almost opened up more questions
I
than
know. I
answers for
probably have.
our audience right now.
Because
Like, right now, they're like, well, do you guys
there might be
know?
like one or two people listening, like, oh, you forgot about this movie.
I feel like
Great.
that's what's
In
happening.
1967
Those people
or
can
whatever.
be
Yeah.
more. Please contact us
Yeah, please.
with
please.
your other.
Which, look, you're clearly a
Final
cinephile,
girls.
which is okay. You can be our friend. We like you. Come aboard.
Yeah.
But definitely correct us if there's a more prominent one before Jamie Lee Curtis as Laurie Strode.
So,
Because if there is, we want to know about it,
Yeah.
and we'll watch it.
Yeah.
so since we're talking about the Laurie Strode character, what
Yeah.
about kind of she starts off as this innocent, you know, final girl, whatever.
Sure.
But look at the evolution of her, and to like H2O, which doesn't count anymore in the universe of Halloween, but she wasn't the sweet innocent
No.
girl anymore. Or
Yeah.
look at her in the most recent one, which is from 2018, which is supposedly in the same world as the original from 1978. She is most certainly not the sweet innocent anymore. Now she's a badass grandma.
Mm-hmm.
And she really is, Bill. You have to see it. She is a badass grandma.
I've
It's-
heard
and
that.
her
I'm honestly
paranoia,
embarrassed
her-
I haven't yet.
Her paranoia is through the roof and
Wow.
lives in like a fortress.
Okay.
But her entire life's goal is to kill Michael Myers.
Yeah.
She wanted
She
him.
knows
To,
he's
she
still out there?
wanted him
Oh,
to be
wow.
set free so she could kill him.
Yeah.
Wow.
She is a badass.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she definitely has evolved significantly over the 40 years.
That's funny. She kind of is an H2O. And Sergio and I talked about it when we did the podcast. Do they So they totally discount H2O, so they probably didn't. But do they play with the?
She has different children from H2O versus the new
okay,
one.
so they
Like, she
don't
doesn't
really
even
have-
have a son.
Because they were playing with an.
Yeah, there's no son.
They were
no
playing
son
with
there.
like an alcohol abuse side story
Oh, in H2O?
in
In
H2O.
yeah,
Oh, yeah.
so in H2O,
Oh, yeah.
She was like pouring down the vodka.
So in H2O,
Yeah.
she was the alcoholic, like damaged, like emotionally scarred forever
Yeah.
person
Yeah.
that turned to the bottle. But then as the movie progressed and as it came down to
Well,
like
they did-
fight the final fight, she got over that, magically got over the alcoholism
Well,
to kill Michael.
It was funny because it seemed like it was like an afterthought where like I think they wanted to go further with it because some scenes still have it where she's like, there's the one where she's
right.
switching out the water and pouring in the whole wine
Yeah,
glass,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or they're at lunch or something and
Yes.
she's drinking,
Yeah,
like
the whole thing
heavily
was-
drinking wine.
She chugs the wine and then asks for another one when the guy goes to the bathroom. Or whatever,
Right,
right.
right.
So they flirt with that in the beginning of the film, but then they kind of
They don't stick with
They
it.
don't.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't
So I
stick
wonder
with
if that was
it.
an original. Oh, we're gonna go heavy-handed with this,
Because
and
then,
then they didn't do it. But they clearly don't in the newest iteration.
no, she's
she's
not.
not-
She's not an alcoholic.
Okay.
By any stretch. She also has different children or different child.
Whoa, hold on. I think you're forgetting a scene. Isn't there a scene where she decides to go to? It was
the
like
school?
to the restaurant. I think it was like after the granddaughters. What happened? Was it a graduation? I haven't seen it. I know. I haven't
Spoilers.
seen it in a year.
It was.
They ended up going to the restaurant. She was acting very sporadic. I thought she started to drink. I thought she started to
you know
drink
what? That is-
alcohol.
that's
and
true.
And
She-
they told her to stop.
because she did have an alcohol. That's right.
And they told her
I
to
take
stop.
back what I said about the alcohol because now that you're reminding me, she did have an alcohol problem.
They glanced over it like she
that she
had a
had
problem
previously had a
had,
problem,
yeah.
and now
That's
she's
funny.
sober.
So they
Yeah.
did kept that little bit from
So,
H2O.
and I read something
They-
recently
they
that
kinda-
I don't know if that's with the theory, but
no, well, it could be because I was reading
What the hell of a
David
coincidence.
Gordon Green and Danny McBride have offered a lot of nods to the sequels
Okay.
throughout their
But-
universe.
But before
Including
you,
that.
in case you were about to read what they said, like
No, I wasn't.
here's where my thought would be is I would think that any individual who went through what she went through at some point in her life would have turned to alcohol,
Some sort of
as
substance abuse.
some sort of substance abuse to
Coping mechanism.
Yes. And obviously, by the time we got to the one that was made last
40
year,
years later.
yeah, where she resolved it, but now that she's sensing it coming back, like her immediate reaction in that restaurant scene would be to want to drink, but then everybody telling her not to.
Right. And
So
she
that's the way
stops.
I looked at that. That's the way I
So-
looked at that scene.
The one thing to like, I guess going back to like quickly on the H2O piece of it, like Bill, you would mention like they were pushing it for a while and then it just kind of stopped because if you think about it, she should be hammered by the time
In H2O.
in H2O. By the time with the amount of alcohol consumed in that movie or on that particular day, she should be loaded by the time the final
that's true.
the
It does
final
take place
battle
in one day.
the
doesn't
final
it?
battle comes around with Michael. She should be like passed out drunk.
Not
There's
if
an
that's her
argument there.
every day.
There's an argument there. Yeah.
Just not swinging axes though and chopping off heads. Like
Let's
I
say
don't know.
that entire H2O movie was all in her drunken head, and she's imagining
because her
the
daughter
rea-
because
the
her
reality
daughter's
is they're just
actually her
being like,
son.
"Meh," swinging an
Right.
axe.
She doesn't, as it turns out.
But this isn't H4O, the one they just did. That's not, even though it's 40 years later to the day.
Are you talking about like
to
a
the-
40 ounce?
Well, it's not.
Was that the significance?
Sorry,
No,
that was a
whatever.
bad joke.
Yeah,
Continue.
Let's go.
I don't know. I'm fine. I'm
Bill's
gonna-
having a hard time
I do
coping
have to
with
see it, but
the
I'm-
elimination of the sequels.
I got it.
of all of them. Some of them you can eliminate, which I think is our next
Well,
topic of discussion
and
here
that's
is what do we
perfect.
not
well,
like?
before we get to that, we kind
Okay.
of glossed over the enjoyment of Rob Zombie's first one.
Oh,
and the
yeah, we
main
have to talk about
reason
the Rob
for that,
Zombies.
Sergio, if you want to field that one.
I will. Okay, so and I know I've said this in previous podcasts too. What I loved about it is it was a great like origin story for how Michael Myers can become that evil.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Granted, the theory is that he has that evil in him, but the way Rob Zombie paints his picture is it was the life that he was living in added to.
Put the evil in him, essentially.
I mean,
or pushed him to snap.
Yeah, exactly. Push him to snap, because you could go with the theory that like an evil person is an evil person, but when you add on layers of, abuse from the family, abuse from people in the neighborhood,
It was
abuse
physical, it was mental, it was all the whole thing.
And the way they just really layered that on for the first, I want to say 40 minutes of that film really gave that nice texture to, all right, I get why this child would snap, because he was brought up in an environment that would subject him to feel that way.
Yeah.
Right. That's just part of the same reason that I enjoyed it so much as well, was because you get so much more backstory out of it. There's more, it just gives you a deeper understanding of who Michael Myers is.
Yes, I do agree to that. It is fun to know more of Michael Myers' backstory. However, it's also, in regards to the 78 version, it's also a little eerie to not know. It's also a little eerie to kind of get the bits and pieces of his background.
That's also,
and see like Laurie looking outside the classroom window and seeing him staring in, and then double taking and looking out again, and he's not there. There's also this fun, dare I say, boogeyman, ghost story-esque trait to Michael Myers that makes him compelling and scary, that you don't know how he has these abilities or whatever, or why he is the way he is, why he's after all these people and on revenge and a murderer. I think that works very well. That being said, I think it's incredibly cool to see the background of Michael Myers. And I think Rob Zombie did an excellent job in that first film of showing how he came about, and making that first part be more about the origin of Michael Myers. And then, like you said, it is about half hour to 40 minutes. And then you have Halloween.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Show the origin, and now you have, all right, well, now he finds the mask, he escaped from the asylum.
Like the story we all know.
And now it's Halloween night, and here's this version of how Halloween night went now,
But
it works either way,
Yeah.
I think, but there is something romantic, if you want to call it that, about the not knowing how this being came to be, or who he is or what he wants. Just that he's there and that he exists, and he's this unstoppable force that is just going to keep coming and just keep appearing, that you cannot stop. There's something very scary about that. Some would argue maybe a little more scary about that than someone with a motive. But anyway, what were you going to say, Joe?
I was going to say, but from that point on, in Rob Zombie's film, I thought he was pretty good on sticking true to the original in terms of story.
I thought so too. Yeah.
Which is what helped me enjoy it, I think, because I'm such a fan of the original.
Mm-hmm.
Now that could very well lead us into some of the dislikes conversation.
Well, I think it should, if we're all done with likes.
I mean, we could probably talk about likes and break down the entire franchise.
We have, for most of our podcasts we have.
Right.
So I think,
look at all the debuts we've gotten out of Halloween films.
True.
We talked about this.
What's up?
Well, so that's a good point, because I think we started this off with let's talk about the likes of the franchise. Did we all go? Bill, did you go through all your likes of the full franchise?
No, I think we've glossed over things.
So glossed over.
Yeah, we glossed over a bunch.
I just want to confirm. Did we all say things that we felt should be said about the full franchise?
Is there anything we're missing? We have glossed over some things.
I'd say watch 1 and 2, 4, 5, or 6. Pick one of those. Then watch H2O.
Well, 4 because you get your Paul Rudd debut.
There you go. Whatever one Paul Rudd's in, watch that one.
Right. As Tommy Doyle.
Then watch H2O. Resurrection. I don't know.
Right.
Then take your pick. But I think you can do the Rob Zombies.
Just the
much-
first Rob
Just the
Zombie.
first
second
one.
one's meh.
Okay, well then let's get into that.
Yeah, you know it. Good point. Good point.
All right. You were
Okay.
asking me. I think as a whole, I've mentioned everything I love. I've already talked about the music in it.
Right. Well, that's another
already
part of
talked
it.
about
I
that
think
and
for
how-
everybody, the music.
I've told
period.
this story before. Yeah,
Right,
where
the music period is amazing. Both the theme and the that piano. The
yes,
dun, dun,
yes,
dun.
the
Yeah.
iconic music that everyone knows. I've talked about this before, though, where
Guys,
the
it's my
original
ringtone for
version
October every year.
before there was music, the allegedly the producers or what have you did not like it. Then they added in that music, and it was the scariest thing they'd ever seen. Suddenly, so music plays a big deal in films in general, but in that one, which everyone, if I say what's the Halloween theme, you know it
Right.
off the top of your head. It's as familiar to you as the Jaws theme.
It's my
one of
ringtone
those-
every year during October.
There you go. It's one of those things that it just really hits, and it's perfectly placed and used in that film, where it's powerful and it tells the story. Is what the music does. It's not just there to be there; it aids in the storytelling and in the horror aspect of it. So that would be the only thing I'd have to add about the franchise as a whole. If anybody else doesn't have anything, we can move on to the shit talking part of the podcast if
Let's
you want.
do it.
Yeah. So I guess the first thing up, since we were talking about it, Rob
it,
Zombie's second one
Hit it.
is one of my least favorite things of the entire franchise.
Oh.
Not my least favorite, but one of them. I think Sergio and I are actually in agreement on our two least favorite things, right? Sergio, is that correct?
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree
So
with
we've
that.
got the Rob Zombie sequel, and of course, Halloween 3, Season of the Witch, which has
Nothing.
Literally, Michael Myers is not present at all
Yeah.
in that film, and I would love to know, since Bill seems to have a lot of backstory insider stuff when he's done making his cocktail, who greenlit that and why? Like, why did that movie get made? Because it's so awful and is nothing like. Were they venturing? Did they have plans to get off the Michael Myers for the Halloween franchise
Oh,
and
yes.
then realized it was a mistake?
Yes, they did.
Okay.
Yes.
Really? That was the backstory? I was
Yeah.
going to say, my gut would have told me that, like, John Carpenter was over it, and the studios who owned the rights at some point were like, oh, no, let's try and make bank.
He might
But
have been.
tell us.
He might have been. I don't know that part of the story.
Well, no, I was just saying, that
The
was
idea-
my gut was.
The idea initially was to make Halloween an anthology series, to where each movie didn't necessarily have to connect.
Oh, just more
Yes.
about the holiday.
Yep.
More about the holiday than
Now,
than
what they
than the
did
story.
not plan on was that after they made Halloween 1 and 2, was that Michael Myers would be such an iconic
Character.
horror
Yeah.
character. That
Yeah.
people went in expecting to see that, and they didn't get it. And that's why Season of the Witch is basically a standalone only Halloween movie without Michael Myers in it.
Do you remember the jingle for the masks, the commercial, the silver shamrock?
No.
God, then I don't even want to remind you.
Yeah,
It's
so that
terrible.
one's that's all about like a mask or a costume company has haunted masks that when the kids wear them, they possess them. Isn't that the basic?
Yeah, pretty much.
So right, so nothing to do with Michael Myers. So the original idea was they were going to
It
go
was
away from it.
originally the novelization of the film
Okay,
was a bestseller.
that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, then I would want to make a guess that the novelization of the film was had nothing to do with Halloween.
Well,
And
here,
they just
here.
made
I
the-
just found your exact. After Michael Myers died at the end of Halloween 2,
Yeah.
the plan by John Carpenter was to make a new Halloween movie each year, each telling a different Halloween-related story. After this movie underperformed at the box office, the filmmakers decided to bring Michael back to life for future sequels.
Well, kids, I'm not right often, but when I am, I like to brag, like right now. So there you go. Yeah, and it didn't work.
Oh, and Jamie Lee Curtis has a part.
Now this I did not know.
She
She's
is the voice of the operator.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Did not know that.
The doctor keeps getting when he tries to call out of Santa Mira.
Now that's gonna. I don't want to watch that movie again.
I
don't want to watch it again, but I want to watch it now. Now knowing that.
London Bridge is Falling Down was chosen as the Silver Shamrock jingle because it was public domain.
Hey, that sounds very Kick Rock-esque, right?
Right. So
I was like, this is like
that's
something
really
we made.
fun. So I mean, Season of the Witch. I mean, it's a largely widely panned Halloween movie.
Oh, it's awful.
Yeah. Not that many people love it. You might find those. There might be some that consider it like a cult horror classic. Whatever. I'm not one of them.
I
don't think any of
I
us
can't
are.
imagine anybody.
Like I said, they went for something. I appreciate that they wanted to make it an anthology series. But in the end, the Michael Myers character, and maybe that's why they brought him back. Maybe he was dead after the second one.
He was supposed to
And
be.
they went, you know what? Let's make the return of Michael Myers. And of course, then from then on, you have the Halloween franchise just being about that. Now, that's not to say that Halloween 3 Season of the Witch is the only bad egg in the franchise.
No, there are several sequels, just like any of the other, Friday the 13th,
There may
have-
Nightmare on Elm Street.
There may have been a misstep or two, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to argue that.
And again, like to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Okay,
It's terrible.
So talk about that. What stands out about the Rob Zombie Halloween 2 to you that you weren't crazy about?
I just feel like the story was not very good.
Okay, a little out there.
Yeah, yes, that's exactly what it was. It became like any other Rob Zombie film and not a Halloween film so much. I don't know.
Yeah, well, yeah, I would agree with that. And it felt very formulaic. It felt like the first one did a really good job. And then he just fell into this kind of like what happened with the second. He did a great job of taking Halloween, the original, and telling that backstory.
Yeah.
But then I felt like he wanted to take the second one and just follow that story on. But because he had this really great first 40 minutes from the first Halloween of this backstory, I felt like he wasn't sure where to take it. So it just felt like it was another day he's out taking that character of Michael Myers and, really just following Laurie Strode.
I think his second one isn't his second one like a year later.
Yes, it's a year later.
Yeah,
Right.
During Halloween.
I'm sorry if you already said that, but because
No.
the original second one is that same night.
Same night.
Rob Zombie goes a year later.
Exactly.
A year later, right.
Exactly.
Right.
It just felt like it was continuing the story without anything more to drive it forward.
Okay.
So for me, it was just like a really bad just continuation of telling the same story of him following Laurie Strode.
So what are your dislikes, Bill? I mean, like which middle sequel are you going to tear apart right now?
Okay. We know I'm very critical on horror sequels as a rule.
4, 5, 6, Resurrection, rip them all, go.
It's rough.
But those films introduced your co-star,
I love Paul Rudd.
not Paul Rudd, your other co-star.
Oh, Danielle Harris.
Yeah.
The niece of Michael Myers. I can't think of her character's name.
co-star. That's
But
awesome.
yeah, I was in a little indie flick with her, even though we weren't in a scene together.
And you never met her.
And I never met her. But she's in the same movie I'm in where I had 5 lines in. So yeah.
We was just talking.
It's called Cyrus, Mind of a Serial Killer. Not that you asked.
Actually a good film for a horror film.
I actually
enjoy
think
it. I enjoy it.
It's a pretty nifty horror flick. It's fun.
I fast forward your part, but I like the
Of course you
movie
do.
itself.
Look, if you want to see a nifty horror flick with 5 lines of bad acting, go ahead and get Cyrus, Mind of a Serial Killer. You're going to see me playing pool, being just an awful human being. Anyway.
We was just talking.
He was just talking. Yeah. Terrible. I'd watch it now only because I look so much younger in that movie. Anyway,
You look so much younger in a lot of our sketches, so that's beside the point.
Joe, why don't you shut your mouth?
We all do. It's not just you.
I know. So yeah. Yeah, Danielle Harris. Well, she's great in those films, obviously. They're not terrible. They don't. It's really tough to top the original Halloween.
Well, of
for me.
course.
For a lot of people, I think. And I have a hard time, and I haven't seen the new one yet because, as I've heard, and I've heard it confirmed, it cancels out even the second Halloween, which is weird to me because, like we talked about, it happens
I agree that
during
that's
the
weird,
same night.
but
You still got Jamie Lee. It's a little weird that it cancels that one out as well.
Right.
It's weird that it cancels out H2O.
that's not
Because at
weird.
the time, H2O kind of canceled out what came before that.
Right.
So it's like canceling out the cancel out. I don't know how that works, but okay.
Right.
It seems like that's the way movies are going lately, where it's like, oh, we're going to reboot this or remake this or do whatever. And none of these existed. None of these happened before this one. You know,
Right.
Terminator's doing it right now. Terminator.
No, they're not
yes.
wiping things out, are they? I thought they
Yes.
No,
were.
they're wiping out basically after
T2.
T2.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
why wouldn't they?
That's what? 4 movies? 3? 3 movies?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I really like.
That's
really
a lot.
like that idea.
That's a lot.
I got to give respect to James
3
Cameron.
films
He's,
that- 3
he's
films
owning
that,
what he
first
started.
of all,
Right.
He's
got-
owning
No,
what he
I
started.
agree. In
What?
that particular case, I agree
I
with
said
you.
I
wiping out.
appreciate James Cameron. Now he's getting back involved. He's owning what he started.
He's telling the rest of his story.
Some might say he's fixing what he started, but all right. Oh,
Yeah,
fixing
fixing what he
nice
started.
way. It's a nice
fixing
way.
what he started.
No, you're being
Even
nice.
better.
You're being nice.
Even
No, I
better.
hope he does. I love it. I'm just saying. Dark Fate, I think it's called, right?
Yeah.
But that seems to be a theme, though, where that didn't happen. We're doing it now. Right? We got that happening. We got a Ghostbusters 3 happening now.
Oh.
Yes,
When
please.
is that coming out? Oh, this is a whole
Interesting,
nother
right? It's
podcast
all-
in general.
But I'm just saying I'm using it as an example of, that's what, they're wiping out whatever lore came before it.
Yeah.
Right? Terminator is probably a better example of that, but Halloween's doing that now too. And now we found out in 2020, Halloween Kills coming out, and in
Right.
2021,
Yeah.
Halloween ends.
Recently announced, Halloween
So-
Kills and Halloween Ends. Halloween
So-
Kills just began shooting
Yeah.
in, I believe, North Carolina. And you found some interesting things on the IMDb page for that, right? Like who they're bringing back and
I did see, and who knows what's true and what's not, but under Halloween Kills on IMDb right now, the original actor that played the girl that Laurie babysits, what is her name? Halloween Kills, here we go.
Oh,
Looking it up right now. She plays Lindsay.
Lindsay Wallace.
Yep. So the actor that plays Lindsay Wallace is going to be, I think it's her. Well, either way, if it's
Is
not the
back
same
at-
actress,
Back being her again.
I don't know if it's the same
It is.
actor. or
It
not.
is.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Same actress,
I was gonna say they're bringing back the same character, but they're bringing back the same actor to play that character years later.
which is pretty awesome.
That's really awesome. So
but I just like that they're bringing back those characters from
Yeah.
that very first night in 1978. Lindsay Wallace and Tommy Doyle
yes.
played.
Now, is there
by-
a Tommy Doyle in Halloween Kills? That would be fun.
There is, played by Anthony Michael Hall.
Oh shoot.
Yeah,
Well, he's not the one that played him originally, but that's a big name to
yeah,
play Tommy Doyle.
yeah.
That's
the
interesting.
40 years later, or 40 plus years later.
That's
now.
very interesting. Okay, so they're bringing it all back, which I can appreciate. I'm into it.
You know,
I
what's
have to
interesting?
see that 2018 movie. I have to see it.
Yeah.
You do have to see it because one thing that's happening here is there's no more doctors. There's no more doctors that
Dr.
treated
Loomis?
Michael Myers. Dr.
Loomis is gone.
And in the 2018 version, they kept referring to that other doctor. Oh, you're the new Loomis. But he didn't make it out 2018.
Spoilers.
You know what, Bill? You had a whole year. You knew what we were talking
That's true.
about.
That's true.
I don't care.
All right, you got me there. All right.
So now
Anyway.
Michael's got no doctors left.
Yeah. That's a good point.
Fair enough. Well, I've spewed my hatred, I suppose. Does anybody else have anything to add
To spew on
to
this
spew to the
podcast?
dislike of the franchise? What are some things that stick out as a ugh moment?
At this point, I don't have many more of those because I love the franchise, and I will watch some of the bad sequels
Yeah.
because of my love for Michael Myers.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Well, I will admit I've hated Halloween 3 for a very long time.
Yes, awful.
But after like this like really fun conversation that we've just had, and then hearing that Jamie Lee Curtis was actually doing voiceover work for that, I kind of want to go back. And you already said it, Bill. Like I want to go back, and now I want to watch that and just like
You realize they're trying something different.
I know I want
At the time, it was a good idea.
I want to look at it from the lens that I have now of well, like we love to do film work and we appreciate what it takes to go into that perspective.
did
Blah
we-
blah blah.
Right. Do
So
we
now-
hate it because it didn't have Michael Myers, or do we hate it because it was a bad movie?
Yeah. So and,
Which is
and I
it?
probably
Let's go
haven't
back and
watched
take a
it
look.
since the 90s.
I don't know
So
where to
I
find
think
it.
I think I will go back. I'm sure it's available to purchase somewhere.
On iTunes or something.
Yeah, so
but-
I kind of want to go back and watch it now. I kind of want to go and give it a chance. Give it a
I think it
one
would be-
fighting fighting chance. It's
I think it
gonna
would be
fail
great if it was pulled from distribution because of this.
because the world just said
Yeah,
no.
well, it's
The
kind of
world,
like,
the world just went no, no,
Yeah.
no,
well,
no,
it's kind
no.
of like how when like for Nintendo, Zelda 2, The Adventures of Link came out, and everyone was like, "Oh, this is like different than any other Zelda." Well, but they forget that at the time there were only 2 Zeldas out, and and like that one stands the test of time. It's still a great game. It's very hard, sure, but it's still a lot of fun, and people don't give it enough credit. And anyway, I'm a nerd, but I think that's a good place to add the podcast.
I think it is.
So we're going to do that right now. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Joe, why don't you take us out of this one, huh?
Oh, I don't.
No,
You
you
But you
it's-
do.
You haven't been here for a
You do
while.
it.
All of us have had to do this at least once.
Now, do we do it like Tony?
Yes.
You do it like Joe.
You do it how you want to do it.
Do it like Joe.
Do it like Joe.
This has been Kicker Rocks. 2 Drink Minimum.
I am so turned down right now. I don't know about you.
You stole my thunder.
And that's going to do it for this episode of 2 Drink Minimum. Thank you so much for tuning in. Did you like what we had to say about the Halloween franchise as a whole? Did you dislike it? Well, you know where you can let us know, right? We still got email, folks. We still do that thing. You can email us at podcast@kickerrock.com. You can also comment right on our Facebook page if you so desire. You can tell us exactly how you feel and maybe some points that we missed, maybe some movies that we missed. Maybe you're a fan of Halloween 3. It was your favorite one in the franchise, in which case I think you're kind of a moron, but that's irrelevant. Tell us how you really feel. We'd love to hear from you. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to like and subscribe on Spotify or on iTunes, whatever your podcast medium of choice is. We love having you guys here with us. Happy Halloween. This has been 2 Drink Minimum. We've been drinking, thinking, and talking shop. Cheers, everybody.